because of just that dynamic alone. And it's only going to get worse, especially if you can cram some sort of naturalization bill through. I don't think he'll be able to do it because of the disparity between the two, between the House and the Senate. But and the fact that there is no there's no, let's say, fair elections anymore. So even if that was the case, that's why, as much as Ron Paul has gained popularity, and I love him, he's like the grandfather that everybody loves to go see and talk to and all that kind of stuff. I still know he doesn't have a snowball chance in hell to attain or ascend to the presidency. A, because of the mighty hill he's got to climb, but B, because the corporate bankster elite will never allow it to happen. It just ain't going to happen, John.
Well, I think if the people want it to happen, then the very least you should do would go make yourself, get a can of spray paint and a little piece of wood 2x2 and a little piece of wood slatting and staple it to the piece of plywood and spray paint it Ron Paul 12.
Right.
And put it in your front lawn or hang it from your window if you live in an apartment building. You can at least get the guy's name out there and help him out a little bit and educate the people around you about what Ron Paul, who he is and what he stands for. And even if you don't like Ron Paul, anybody else that doesn't have a D, an R, a C, or an S after their name. The C would be the communist and the S would be the socialist, folks, because although they're not usually on the ballot, they're there.
Now, what's interesting, John, is simply this. You're absolutely right. If people were proactive, he could most certainly do that. But what did I say at the beginning of the broadcast? The fake triot movement and everything else.
Free beer and Dancing with the Stars for a Ron Paul vote.
It's easy to put out a YouTube video and to get on your pulpit, your bully pulpit, and rah, 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 rah. It's another thing to go door to door. It's another thing to go to these events and speak. It's another thing to make pamphlets. Much like our Freedomlink Canada buddies did up in Canada with the vaccination campaign. Relentless, man. Relentless. They were out there all the time with their bullhorns, with their pamphlets, everybody out there protesting the vaccinations, showing people the truth about it. That's what needs to happen if you want it to be successful. If jackbooted thugs come knocking on your door, you want to know what you do if they try to bust through? You put a bullet in them. That's what you do. You show them. You draw the line. If they try to come into your house, hell no, man. You do what you got to do. You draw the line. Right now, they have fear on their side. And that's one thing that you have to take away from them. You have to take the fear factor away. You need to take the fear factor and play it against them. Because I guarantee you, and anybody listening out there that's a police officer, get a grip. That's all I can tell you. Get a grip. See the truth for what it is. Understand that what you're doing by enforcing these things and taking these actions are not only an injustice to your own family, but that all you're doing is you're playing hitman for the mob. You're playing hitman for the mob, and guess what? The mob turns against them. They put them out to dry. Don't think that these same tactics won't be used against you and your family. Don't think that just because you hide behind the shield that you're immune to this, because you're not. Not at all.
You're just a tool.
That's it. You're just a tool. An ends to justify the means is all this is. And let me tell you something. It's like my wife calls it, rogue usurpation of power. It's illegitimate, and we don't need to recognize it. Much like the United States doesn't recognize certain countries that come up. We don't need to recognize their authority. Says who? It's illegitimate. It's illegal. You know? Yeah, that's right. Military soldiers aren't supposed to follow unlawful orders. There's a framework in place that allows them to say, no, I'm not going to do it because it's unlawful. So there's a lot to be said, and the Constitution provides the basis, provides the foundation for the legal framework of this country. But it takes everybody and a sustained effort to be able to get that word out. Your thoughts, John King? Sure.
Yep, I'm taking in exactly what you were saying, and I agree. Billy H. I read what you put down there. I have no fear. I have a 45. I don't think so. I think everybody has an underlying fear of getting their door kicked in at 3 a.m. when you're most vulnerable.
Exactly right.
That is a possibility. If you say you don't have that, I have that fear, not only because of what I do 2 times a week and stick my ass out in the wind that I do consistently, like a dumbass. I have that fear. I've been under the boot of the jackboot Nazi thugs. I have been through the system. I know what it's like. I've suffered it. And many of the people that listen to the show and that know me know exactly what I went through when a neighbor accused me of doing something that I did not do without evidence. I was arrested and sent and posted bond and went through the whole legal system. And even though I had a videotape exonerating myself that explained everything that happened and proved that the neighbor was a liar, I still had to go through the system. Cost me $8,000 in fees, or tribute, I should say, to have to buy my own freedom. And at the end, the judge nailed me with a $25 fine because I had the nerve to say the F-bomb in public, that I was out of order. Now, is that freedom of speech? I don't think so. Every time I go down to make my $25 payment, I tell them that I'm here to pay the tribute.
That's right, and that's what it is. I mean, for example, a good friend of mine got a speeding ticket about a month and a half ago, and she got a speeding ticket by an officer in the rain, moving in the opposite direction. So, being that RF engineering and stuff like that, radio frequency engineering, is my forte, I wrote a letter stating why you can't use speed radar, in that type of fashion. It's not designed to be moving unless it has an input, but a speed input. But to make a long story short, wrote up this big letter, signed it on letterhead, all that kind of stuff. The magistrate never looked at it. We don't throw out speeding tickets, so we'll just reduce it to what was it, like a broken equipment or something like that, that type of thing. $165. All they're doing, folks, is shall we say, imposing a tax increase on you, because they know they can't put one through, and hope to hell that they have a job. And I say hope to hell because, to me, that's who their masters are. But that's how they get you. Oh, we'll just have checkpoints. Make sure all your stuff's in order, right? If it's not, bam, get you. Hey, your brake light's out. Faulty equipment, bam, gotcha. That's how they work it. That's how they roll. So that's what we're dealing with here. And how much of this can we take? And I'm in podunk I mean, this is crazy. I'm in the backwoods of North Carolina. It's like Boss Hogg, man. It's crazy. And even at this point, here I am thinking, oh, this is paradise. All right. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to screw with me. Holy moly, man. It's crazy. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. I mean, just the rights are gone because we make it that way, because we don't stand up to it. Now, I confronted the sheriff about this, and I know that he knows me now, and I know him now, and I'm sure it's not going to be our last run-in. But the hope is to plant some seeds in his head so that if he is a decent human being, and I hope that he is, that he actually comes to grips with things one day and says, you know what? Wow, this guy, you're right, this is wrong. I hope that he doesn't rely on North Carolina state funding. I hope he could tell North Carolina state government to shove it up their tuchus. We'll figure out a way to fund our police department. We don't need you. Get you and your damn checkpoints out of here. We don't need that. We'll figure it out ourselves. That's the right thing to do. Well, Johnny boy, let's see what's going on in the news, shall we?
Sure.
Anything you'd like to talk about, my friend?
Let me see.
Let me ask you this. You think that guy, the IMF chief, you think that was a setup?
Oh, yes. Yes. It's just, well, I find it quite interesting that he wanted to give Greece another bailout, and the other members of the IMF were totally against it. And it wasn't a couple weeks later, after he suggested bailing Greece out again, that he apparently ass-raped a hotel maid. And surprisingly enough, when he decides he's going to resign, somebody flips him the $1 million bail money, and somebody else takes the stand as the head of the IMF. And from what I understand, it's a woman this time.
Correct. Yeah. No, it's
from
that.
France.
That's right. But what's interesting is 60% of French citizens believe it was a setup. And okay, I would go with that, except this guy fits the mold of your classic Moloch worshipping elitist scumbag.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say, Joe, he's an elite. He's one of the elite. So even if he did sodomize her, it probably lasted all of about 2 seconds.
Well, however you cut it, man, this guy's a scumbag, and I'm glad that he's there. But I'm afraid it's a circus. I don't know what the real agenda is behind it, but I think it's something that definitely takes the focus on some things that are very important, some things that should be getting a lot more attention that just aren't. Let's say like Japan. How come there isn't more attention being given to Japan, which has been recognized as worse than Chernobyl? And I mean, Chernobyl had widespread and far-reaching health effects, and here we have Japan spewing radiation. God only knows what's going to happen to their general populace. But what about the effects on the rest of the world? What's all this radiation, even though it's negligible, quote-unquote, by our nuclear regulatory agencies? What the hell are we doing about this? And why isn't it getting more press? John, go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. You know, I just want to say this on air and just put this out there. If I offend somebody, then tough. You know, I go on YouTube and I look at the videos, and you said you don't watch YouTube quite anymore that much because of what's been going on. But I see these people out there with these dosimeters, and they put them out there in these various places, and they take a measurement or they take a reading, and the reading might be 45 or 33 or whatever. I very rarely have I seen the reading over 50, and I know I've never seen it anywhere near 100. Okay, that's all well and good about taking the readings, guys, but what do the readings mean?